John. So Akua, he is very much bright and intelligent person, good mechanic. He's lacking the proper scientific explanation of his phenomena that he's got here. On the right hand side, he had a Tesla coil, so the primary and the secondary. He also showed at the bottom of the secondary coil that bank of the capacitors, small capacitors, that he was using probably to create the capacitive reactance to keep the frequency lower. And I don't know what was the ratio between the primary and the secondary, but he was getting probably about 20-30,000 volts. The frequency of Tesla coil in his working device was about 10 kilohertz, but that what he presented was actually working at the frequency of about 60 kilohertz. On the left hand side, then he had another tube that was as tall as the Tesla coil, and he had on it a coil that was a bifilar coil. And then so on the top of the bifilar coil, actually not on the top, but like 2/3 from the bottom, he had a very thick wire pickup coil. And at first he was giving the signal to the pickup coil, and the signal from the generator, and he was measuring the signal response. Then actually, because you have a loss coupling, the distance wasn't really 9 inches, was approximately 20 centimeters. Yeah, about 9 inches, 10 inches, whatever was there. You have a response of the signal that is in one coil, or one set of the structure is then being induced in the other one. He was then switching 2 channels of his oscilloscope and shows the signal dependency. Then when he was explaining the schematics, he shows the schematic that had 2 microchips, and that was that phase loop, the lacking synchronization circuitry. You're pretty much familiar with it, it's nothing new. And then he was showing by shifting one of the frequencies how far he could go left and right to break the synchronization on it. And the primary application that he has for his phase loop synchronization circuitry is to keep that in equal dependency, in resonance. That means that when you're dealing with the high voltage from the Tesla coil, you have all of the range of the frequency from very small to very high, and all of the mix products of it. But the most important factor is that those 2 signals should be synchronized. And even without using high voltage, he also he switched the generator to the Tesla coil, to the first coil. He was delivering a signal of 12 volts from the signal generator. And then he was trying to explain that now in the second structure that was close enough, 9 inches away, in the pickup coil part of it, he was getting the induction which is nothing new. What was really interesting is when he touched his hand to one side of the pickup coil, and then the amplitude grows a few 100%. And when that happened, immediately the first thing that popped into my mind was that counterpoise. And also it popped to my mind that device could work without any problem without the real ground. The first version of how the device works was that he creates kind of pump at which he creates the potential difference from one side of the capacitor, and the other side of the capacitor is connected to the ground. And now, because there is a disbalance, the electrons come from the ground up. But if then we're dealing with the counterpoise, now from the counterpoise, it is balancing that is happening towards that capacitor. The only thing is that he never deals with the real capacitor, but he deals with the coil capacitor, which is the internal capacitor of the coil. Also, on the top of the Tesla coil, he had that donut shape structure on the Tesla coil.
Like you would have on a Van generator?
On the top of the Tesla coil, of the high voltage coil, you have the donut, sort of.
I just look at it as a hat.
Now, what is happening there, John, is that, remember what Dick said, that when we have a frequency of the response of the resonant circuit that is lower than the frequency of the generator, just a little below. Now the coil has the capacitive character. At that time we have a high voltage, low current. When we then have the frequency of response of the resonant circuit that is higher of the frequency of generation of the generator, then we have inductive reactance, and then we have a low voltage and a high current. Do you agree with that?
Well, what you're describing is what happens like in a simple dipole antenna. Yeah.
Right. But the antenna by itself is a resonant circuit. So when what he showed, that he took the capacitor out and he tuned to the frequency of the resonance, and let's say it was about 200 kilohertz, and then he added the tank, the capacitive tank on the top of it, and then he lowered down the frequency to say 90 kilohertz. So my immediate thought, the first one that popped into my mind, is that he lowered down the frequency of resonance to create a more capacitive character towards the frequency of the generator that was still connected to it.
Okay, the only thing that disturbs me out of all of that is you told me you released the information and you don't know the turns ratio. How could that be if you had the diagram? That's interesting.
No, I just don't know about the frequency, about the turns ratio of the Tesla coil. But most of the informations are pretty much explained. Well, I was thinking why he's doing that. From one hand, he's applying or trying to apply for the patent application, but nothing wrong. I mean, he's an inventor and he has a full rights to do it. And you know, most of the people were trying to do it. The only thing is that he was long enough in the free energy movement, or at least a research that he knows that is never going to work. His personal safety is only uh, possible if he's backed up with a group of people that is able to immediately uh, fly out with that. Maybe one of his thoughts, original thoughts, is that he's trying to educate the public to a certain point, and if there is anything that changing his personal situation, that public will be with very little effort very much educated how to finish up that. Also, there is a certain craziness in it. Yes, that's what I said. I mean, the next video, which then describes sort of the ether, which if the mainstream of the science is now based on the new development, trying sort of say that space is filled with something, although they don't use the word ether, then he wouldn't be crazy as much with that. Do you agree with that?
Well, he could just make up any name and call it anything he wants. He doesn't have to have a legitimate term like ether, or dark energy or anything like that. He could just call it XYZ if he wanted to.
Yeah. But then, addition to that, by him, by implementing nuclear magnetic resonance in copper, is kind of hard to swallow. And then the interesting part of it that might not be as crazy as we think it is that he explained interaction with the gases. And because this is not directed to us, it's directed to the particular person, he states that he's going to send him the additional information of it. Now, I was thinking, what kind of gases? We have Tariel Capenaze and his device, whatever he is, but still, we have somebody who states that he has a working device prior to Akua.
You got, what's his name, Rossi. He claims he's using gas too.
Yeah, he's using high hydrogen and nickel. And 1 gram of nickel in the hydrogen is giving him about 10,000 BTU. So it's that's something that couldn't be a hoax, because it was sort of affirmed or proven, or at least assigned by the group of scientists, independent people from different universities in Europe. And also the amount of money this guy has is €500 million. So this guy sooner or later is gonna fly, unless he's gonna be purchased by some powers.
Well, yeah, he might be. But don't forget, he's got a lot of investors that are with him that may not accept that. They may force him to do other, unless they're going to buy them all off. Possible.
Right, John. Well, so coming back to Akua, the most of ideas that he is showing us are not really the ideas that we first heard from him. It is rather that some very much influential members of that free energy movement are giving a certain way of understanding that. So one stated about that capacitor that is constantly in disbalance, which again is not a capacitor. It's a coil with the very big capacitive reactance on it, and then eventually, whenever the electrons flows down, or whatever the, for the easiness we call them free and out electrons, goes down from the earth or from the counterpoise from the plate on the 72nd floor, 2 meter by 2 meter, whatever. To balance that capacitors, immediately that energy, balancing energy, is being consumed by loosely coupled pickup coil or the receiving coil that is connected to the light bulbs. And Akua even pointed that he had a number of light bulbs, but one of the light bulbs could not be switched on to the circuit because then it would not work. Of course, he didn't explain that the load becomes an active part of the resonance circuit. And by adding another light bulb, he's adding actually the real resistance, which actually detune the circuitry. So if he has, let's say, 1 kilowatt of output, now he wants to add another 100 watts, he cannot do it. But also he cannot do it reverse way. He cannot have 900 watts or 800 watts because he disbalanced that. And the other part of the circuitry from the other side of the capacitor, say coil capacitor, is the one that is constantly requesting the balance being made or by the responding ground. So Akua, in one of his materials, actually was trying to implement that as well. He's learning fast. I mean, he's a young fellow, very much ambitious one. So we'll see what's happened. At least he was indicating his willingness till the end of the year to have a full manual, sort
so
of,
he's going to hold off full disclosure
how
until
to
the
get
end
his
of the year.
device.
All right. Well, maybe he thinks he has enough time to get away with that. All right, good. But I don't think he should be talking about nuclear resonance or spin, or I don't think he has the talent for that, and I don't think that's any part of his device. And the mysterious gases in the air, I don't think so. I think he's just working with conventional magnetic fields, and he may have something unique there. Interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking about coupling the magnetic field that is very much ignorant factor of the magnet not cooperating. It's by itself. So whatever is around the magnet could interact with that field, but the magnet by itself simply say, I don't care. But there are the methods that will actually make that field working for the benefit of the process.
Well, he may run into something that's helping him without him knowing what it is. That's a possibility. But if he has it working, and if he detunes it in either direction, and he adds a load which detunes it, makes it not work, I assume if he retunes it, he can get it to work. So that's interesting too. But it basically is operating at 1,000 watts, you said?
Yeah, about somewhere between 750 watts to say 1500 watts. Now, another idea that he presented is that his Tesla coil would be the central structure, at which around of that he would have a receiving coil, or that additional coil, which would be the bifilar coil, almost as tall as the Tesla coil, with the pickup coil at the end of it. He is envisioning that he could be able to reach about 20 5 to 28 to 30 kilowatts output power from each receiving coil with the proper tuning. And the major that he foresee as being responsible for the proper tuning of the device is that phase loop regulation, at which he would. I still go to the Lithuania experiment. I kind of see some trick in here. Maybe I'm wrong. I know that we have a sinusoidal signal, and from 0 point to almost to the top of the amplitude, we putting a very high peaks of high frequency. We are able to excite a ferrite, which then has to be a special ferrite, and be able to achieve the effect. That's why when I was dealing with Coleman, I actually found that it doesn't matter what shape is of the donut of that ferrite. The important is that we have the mutual interaction. Now he's showing a structure that, at least at the last videos, does not show the presence of any ferrite. His first working device was based on the same ferrite. He even showed the ferrite that didn't work. He says, well, I was doing the job on this ferrite and didn't work. So I changed to another ferrite and look at the ferrites. It's the ferrite from LithuaniaExperiment, exactly the same model. At least looks like that. Especially when he's from this area, this part of the world. And of course the ferrite was giving a huge buzzing sound, which was exactly the same. Then I spoke to another gentleman, friend from the Kazakhstan, and he actually was the first one who was working with it, so he confirmed that, yes, definitely. But now he's kind of moving the attention of the public to something that is a ferrite less, which might be misleading. Maybe he needs that for the purpose of finishing what he's planning to do right now with his patent proceedings and to exchange.
Yeah, it's too much clandestine work there, too much intrigue. I got an interesting question that I've been wondering of. If he built a second coil, receiving coil, and put it 180 degrees in opposition to the first coil, will that also deliver 900 watts?
John, that's a beautiful question. That's a beautiful question. At first, what I see in here is if he put that coil at 90 degrees, he would have a basis for the nuclear magnetic resonance. But at what? He's got a coil structure that is normally being used for the magnetic nuclear magnetic resonance, but he doesn't have a medium that is being affected by the spin. I mean, the spin is being created in it because he doesn't have a ferrite on the last one. So that's why this is very much.
Yeah, I take it that way at 180 degrees, then place one at 90 degrees, then place one every 120 degrees. I wonder if he can generate 3 secondary coils, or the receiving coils, 3 of them, and deliver 900 watts from the same Tesla coil. I wonder how that would go.
My primary expectation is just to finish that mess up. That is around holding humanity in slavery. But it's my personal opinion. And I don't really care very much how he did it. Just want it out. But you have a good thoughts, John, and I'm gonna put a lot of attention to that. I see myself as the person who is pretty much involved in Coleman. and I know this is gonna work. Uh, but I'm doing it scientific way. So I'm taking a time, and I'm just at first thinking and learning. As he's an enormous practitioner, then I even told him, listen, give it out, people will make it better. Your name is already written to the history files. You're gonna have your benefit, but at the same time, look, 6.8 billion people. It's enough time for him as the first one to make a huge, enormous amount of money, along with others not being afraid about the competition. And I was even joking today. I said, I can stop this young lady and I can ask her if she would be willing to buy something if she believes that it works.
Well, might be something there for him to toy with, because it would be interesting if he built a second coil, the loading effects it would have on the Tesla coil, which really shouldn't matter. It'll be in the same radiation field, only 180 degrees away. And if he could throw a 900 watts from the second one, what does that tell you?
And very intriguing, John. Um, I know that Arunas will jump into it and try to think. He's a thinker. Um, there are few guys that are simply so stupid, including me, that they became uncorruptible, which is good. I mean, John, my philosophy of life is how much is too much and how much is enough. What do I need? 3 times bigger lab? Yeah, I would love to have it. And some money for living, not much. I mean, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna buy? A Lamborghini? I don't care. John, I have my van.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way. I have all that I need. And what's the difference if you die medium, wealthy, or poor? You're dead, you're dead. So as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, it really makes no difference. But, well, he's got that system. You've got the Coleman. And between the two of those, you get something moving. But he should understand that he's working on something. He claims he has something that works. He's going to put a patent application in. It'll be denied more than likely, but at least he has the application in. Okay, so if he puts it out, and even if only 30 or 40 people jump on it out of the millions and millions that you have there, that are bright people, I mean, you may have a couple of thousand dummies that try something, but they're not going to do anything. I think it would accelerate the process tremendously. I think he's very foolish.
Yes, and that's what I was trying to explain to him. I gave him a simple example. Let's say Wesley finish up his Coleman, okay? And if let's say even the cost of each tube is $10, and 1,000 tube was made in one day, piece of cake, some powder, and then each tube is being sold for $1,000. At the end of the day, there is a $1 million in the pocket, cash, and tomorrow is another day. And the buyers, every person walking on the street, every person over 18 years old. But let's say Akua would do it, not even a thousand devices. Let them do it 5, 10. I mean, how much is too much? I simply cannot understand why people are, and not Akua, I'm talking about all of the people, all of those guys who are trying to patent something, including Coleman and Gillespie. John, how much greed is not too much greed and not enough greed? I just cannot answer that question. How stupid people are because they want benefit even though that they know that they benefit in the first place. Because there is not enough of competition that could make them not rich. Ugly rich.
Well, greed is never defined with a limit. It's always limitless. More and more and more. That's why it's a disgusting thing. But that's our capitalistic system, as you know. So how much is too much? Don't know. But I know every poor man wants to have more than he has. So does the middle class. And so do the rich. So they're all the same when it comes to greed. Only different levels. And of course, the rich have the opportunity to finance certain systems that make them richer. And what that does for them, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, Murdoch. The empire. The news empire. I mean, this guy was ugly rich.
Well, I think that enormous amount of wealth corrupts people. I think well, in a way, they are better than other people because they're better off and they have less worries. So, yeah, they are better than other people. But I don't think they ever lose that acquire more and more. So, and that's been since, before the days of the Romans. We're not going to get rid of it.
Now he's facing whatever the lawsuit in Britain stuff, and his life is miserable and whatsoever. But he was already ugly rich. And my question to you is, what makes that person to do things that make eventually him end up in jail or being stripped from his wealth? If major goal was to make more money, why to risk as much to go down?
Oh, Murdoch? Is that who you mean?
Yeah, you didn't hear about it?
Rupert Murdoch. Okay. I don't recall anything recently.
John, he's in big trouble, humongous trouble right now. I'm not sure if he's in jail or not. I was just listening a little bit when I was driving on it. For at least some of the allegation is because of the wiretapping of the private conversations and stuff like that. And he was good. He was excellent. He was acquiring most of the medias and stuff. But look, it's not about him. It's about any person that has as much. How much more you need to take a risk? Can't you just do your business or just enjoy your life? You're not gonna be able to spend all of it.
I had heard that he was tapping the phones of employees and some other people were listening in somehow, but I didn't know how far it went. But when did you hear something today?
From the media.
Well, the regular media hates him anyway. So they're going to look to destroy him. So, hey, if they do, okay. One less wealthy guy. If they take all his money away, they're not going to give it to the poor, that's for sure. It's just more corruption to go further places. It's silly stuff.
This was John. That information was from NPR, public radio. It wasn't on the commercial channels.
West They're just as bad as just because they're National Public Radio. That doesn't mean they're public. They have their own agenda too. They're just as corrupt as all the media is the same. They got their own agenda.
Okay. Yeah, so, well, what I see is if Akua put the stop on it, that of course would be the reason. The reason might be because somebody put the stop on Akua. Akua put the stop on it because of whatever gain or whatever threat. Then it would be me. It would be me. How many times the history has to repeat itself, John? There are only two possibilities that I would make it and not be able to deliver, or I would never be able to finish up. But if I would never be able to finish up, I would make sure that somebody will.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And I'm sure, well, he should have somebody that has all of the technical information in case something happens to him to pass it on. Or, if he thinks he's in trouble, transmit it now. There's the insulation right there.
I don't believe he's such a stupid. He's got his hidden files. I got my hidden files. And even though that somebody could employ all of the possible intelligence, sooner or later it's gonna go up. It's gonna go out. And the reason for it is because it's too much knowledge there, and it's too big group of people that is involved there. They cannot stop it. The international situation has changed. I was listening to 1964 video that was International Tesla Conference, and at that time people were trying to develop the technology, but it was traditionally patent pendings, patent application, of course talking about the freedom of technology and stuff like that. There was no internet. And right now, the whole intelligence from the entire world cannot stop if it's spread to 1,000 people in the working device. Just 1,000 people make it. It grows up as a disease. But this one, at that point, would work for the benefit of humanity.
Well, look, right now you have the Russians revisiting Tesla's work. You know, you saw that video that you sent me, the brick. You know, they're doing some interesting things. You know, they have some interesting claims. But the same thing, they know what side the bread is buttered on. And it's going to interfere with people. Even if what they did didn't have some of the the fact, just the copper savings alone that they were talking about. You're talking about tons and tons of copper, thousands of tons. Nobody wants to see that. So, yeah, there's some interesting information out there, and it is becoming more and more prolific and ubiquitous. I agree.
Yeah, but John, don't you think that people think about the scientist as somebody who's got knowledge, education, and is working something interesting, but at the same time, those people working in science are pretty much lonely creatures. I mean, John, look at your life, look at my life. I mean, how much time do we spend outside science. At least me. Chad, 0 to none?
Well, very true. I spend little time doing other than that, although I do take time to enjoy other things, because there are other things in life than just, the whole thing about scientists, well, experimenter, tinkerer, whatever. And really, a scientist is worthless who does, they assimilate all of the knowledge, they become brilliant in a subject, but they don't do anything with it. What use is that person? What has he contributed to the world? Another smart person who did nothing? We don't need him. What we need are those tinkerers that enjoy what they're doing. Sometimes they suffer, but produce something. Those are the true scientists, the ones that come up with some benefit for the world or for the locality that they live in, something like that. Right now, until you do something, we're just experimenters.
I have a problem with that, John. In other words, any man who is playing with science, who was lucky to develop something practical or something that is usable and beneficial to the humanity, is a scientist. And every other guy who wasn't lucky enough to develop something is just a scientist.
No, but it's like being a legend in your own mind. What good is it? Now, it's different if what you learn, even though it's not a revelation, doesn't produce anything, if you pass on what you learn and you educate other people who are willing to do that, well, yeah, that's good too. So you help out people. But the guy who just sits at the computer and reads all this stuff and becomes brilliant, or reads books, or tinkers at the bench and learns all of it and doesn't pass it on, that's really a waste of life. Not for himself, because he has the satisfaction of accomplishments and can learn things. But as far as worldview, he's a waste of life.
Talking about me, I don't even have a time to read all of the material that is current and be just current with everything that is going on the forums and in the scientific groups or the groups of interest. At the same time, every day or every few days, I'm discovering something that is so absolutely magnificent. I would love to have it. I would love to know more about it. The atomic force microscopy that we were talking last time, the EDXRF, and that's in particular what I'm sitting at is the atomic structure and the processes of it. Then the question pops out to my mind: what is the sense of life? If I'm happy, if I have a emotion, then what else does the person need to be happy?
Yes, and you find it satisfying. But you have to understand you're containing all of what you're learning within yourself. And as far as the community of the world, they benefit zero from all of your study. All it does is bring a higher level of intelligence or a higher level of education on one person. That's why it's necessary for people who have the special qualities to pass that on to people who are interested. And of course, you can't, seeds on rocks don't work, but there are people who are interested in some things. And that's one of the reasons I try to help as much as I can to pass on a little bit of knowledge that I have, or if I discover something that I find unique, I'll talk about it and try to get other people's opinions. But that's why if you develop this system and it works and you put it out there, that's fantastic. That's an accomplishment.
The only thing is that with your vision of helping people, educating children, creating science classes and stuff like that, nobody's gonna kill you, John. And nobody's gonna poison you. And with that, what I'm playing with, it's very much uncertain. And I had a good size of it already. I mean, am I afraid? Honestly, John, I'm not. I'm in a certain age. I pretty much know where I am and where I go. And for some powers of the world, this kind of people are simply dangerous. Because you can't buy them. They laugh of money. Just laugh. John, thank you very much. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Well, doing what I do, I don't fear that anybody's going to attack me now. But if I was out to teach philosophy, they would have to kill me, because the philosophical functioning of the system is not where I think it should be. Yeah, that they may hold me for. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, John. Have a good night. It's 5:07 in the morning. Have a good night, my friend.
5:07. It's morning. Pretty soon the sun will be coming up. Time to change the socks, as Dick says. Good night.